Uh, Now we're not going to start from the beginning. We're going to start from the middle once again. We're going to start from the fourth aliyah, which is Perek Zayin, Pasuk Ches. That's chapter 7, verse 8. Okay?
Good. The.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Fourth aliyah. Just a bit of an introduction. I specifically chose the aliyah which begins to discuss the makos, known colloquially as the plagues, because the first few aliyahs don't even get into that. First, you have a description of the lineage of Moshe and Aaron, and then you have more background as to the situation, and only here do we first start to get into the makos themselves. So I decided to sort of skip to this particular part because people tend to find it fascinating. As far as the makos themselves, as to the exact details of each makkah, certainly there is, you have disagreement amongst the mafarshim, amongst Chazal, as to the exact nature of each makkah, but in general the idea is pretty clear. The basic idea of each makkah is very, very clear, spelled out in the Chumash. For those of you who are interested in history, there have been in more recent years numerous archaeological findings in Egypt that also reflect the story of the Chumash. They actually don't have every single detail, but there have been papyrus, several other artifacts that from people who were eyewitnesses that wrote about different aspects of the makos. So if you're interested in history, you can research that as well. Yeah. It's you won't find that in the Chumash, but it's sort of, it complements it, if you will. It's very interesting.
Well, thank you.
But and as far as I mentioned, as far as the exact the details of each makkah, so here we have the Mefarshim note different things. Not all of them agree about every single detail. Maybe we'll explore some of that as well. But just a short introduction about the makkah. So some of the Mefarshim raise a very interesting point. And if you are hosting any large a seder this year, Pesach, you're hosting a communal seder or something like that for newcomers, I think that this particular Dvar Torah is an excellent introduction. I've never tried it, but I think that this is just an excellent way to approach the seder. So the Maggid of Dubna, who lived a couple hundred years ago, time of the Vilna Gaon, he raised, as many Mefarshim, the following question, which is, the makos, it took an awfully long time. It took the better part of a year. Right, this whole process. So in the meantime, the Jews had to sit there and wait to leave. So if they were supposed to leave, right, Hashem did not need to spar with Paro to get him to let the Jews go out. Hashem could have taken them out immediately, right? So what exactly was the point of this whole process where Hashem is, like, so to speak, sparring with Paro? Let them go. No, I won't let them go. Okay, then I'm going to show you, bringing a makkah. He could have just done things immediately. Take them out immediately. Why do it in such a schlepped out manner? This is the question which many Mefarshim raise.
Yeah.
Any answers before I supply with the Dubna Maggid's fantastic answer?
Hashem wanted to demonstrate it to him, his control in various dimensions, if you will, right? Control over nature in certain respects. Because each makkah is unique, or maybe each set of makkos is unique in that respect. So.
It's a good answer. Okay.
That's good. And another answer along with that is that while I think of the conflict as being one of get the Jews out of slavery, would you?
Mm-hmm.
That there's a larger issue, which is for God to show that he's God. And Pharaoh claimed to be a god, and so it's a power struggle.
Which is what you're echoing basically what he said. Very good. It's a good answer. Okay. Hillel, got anything to say on this matter? Okay, we'll let you go. Maybe they didn't have enough cars or something like that, to take the Jews out, so they had to wait a couple months just to put together the materials. That's probably not the answer though. So,
Really?
no, just kidding. So the Dubna Maggid is a very interesting answer, and it really is. It basically is your answer,
Okay.
but he develops it more. I can't go through everything that he says, don't have the time, but I'll describe briefly. And because it's just something to know, the Dubna Maggid was known for stories. You know, some people here like my stories.
Sure.
My stories are nothing. His Dubna Maggid, compared to the Dubna Maggid, can make up stories on the spot. Make it, parables, mashalim, to illustrate his points, and he was just known for that. He was a. There's even a story about how, I think I've mentioned it before. Someone asked the Dubna Maggid, "How do you always have such good stories for everything? How do you always have such a good mashal to illustrate the points? How do you do it?" So he responded. He said, "I'll tell you a parable about that too."
Yeah, right.
And and we actually know what it was. That's the best part. He said it's like you have a man who's walking in the forest, and he sees there's a tree, and smack in the middle of the tree there's this target, and there's an arrow which is lodged right dead center of the target. Expert marksman. So he's impressed. Okay, he walks another few feet, sees the same thing. Another tree, target straight, arrow dead in the center.
Wow.
And this keeps repeating itself, and the man just decides he has to find this marksman. So he starts wandering around the forest, and finally he sees a man with a bow and arrow. He's getting ready to shoot. He says, "Are you the marksman who shot?" He said, "Of course, yes, that's me." So the fellow says, "How do you manage to hit? What's your trick to hit with such precision?" He says, "Oh, it's not a big deal. All I do is I shoot the arrow, I draw the target around it." So he said, the Maggid said, You think I make up stories for every occasion? Of course not. I just make up the story, and then I find the point afterwards. I find which most people, even if that's true, most people can't do that. They can't just, find a lesson in every single story. But he said that I don't have the point in mind. I say the story, and afterwards I find, as I'm going through it, I find a point to take out of it. In any case, so he was known for stories and a way of bringing things into the, into to be very difficult points to be very clearly understood. So here's what the Dubna Maggid says. He says, say you have, you can have two people who bake, but they both bake for different purposes. One person bakes for themselves and for their immediate family, and you have someone else who's a commercial baker. There are many differences, but one or two of the primary differences are that someone who's baking for themselves, so they don't have to make so much in terms of quantity. A little bit of some leftovers, and that's it. And also in terms of the types, the variety, you don't have to have that much variety. You know more or less what each person likes. But if you're baking commercially, you have to have a lot, because you may run out. And number two, more critically, you have to make all different types, because you have to appeal. You can't just bake what you want, then you're not going to get any customers. You have to bake what other people want. So Dubna Maggid says the point of Yetzias Mitzrayim was not merely for that generation. It wasn't even just for Paro himself, although it certainly was. It was to provide a lesson for him and his people and the people of that time. But the Dubna Maggid draws on many references from Sukkim, from the Tanakh, that the Yetzias Mitzrayim was supposed to be a learning experience for all of humanity, for especially all of the Jewish people throughout history. And not everyone connects to the same point. Right? Some people will come away inspired from one point. Some people will come away inspired from another point. Some people it's a medrash. Some people it's a detail in a pasuk. It's a wording in a pasuk. It's one event. Right? It's not everyone is hit by the same point as far as what they take out of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and therefore Hashem deliberately schlepped it out for a while with a large quantity of makos and a large variety of the types of makos that he performed. That way everybody will be able to find something that speaks to them and connects them, and they'll be able to take out that the emunah that they need for all time. That's what the Dubna Maggid says.
Bravo.
As to the different types. So this is an excellent way to begin your Seder. Especially if you have an audience of beginners, I think this is a very good way to broach this topic. So we'll begin. We're not having a Seder here. Didn't bring any props. But we'll as we go through the psukim and see all the detail, we'll keep that in mind. Okay, let's have a look at Perek Zayin Pasuk Ches. V'yomer Hashem Moshe v'el Aaron leimer. Hashem said to Moshe and to Aaron, saying. Pasuk Tes, Ki yidaber aleichem paroi leimor, tnu lachem moifes. If or when Paro will speak to you, saying, provide for yourselves a sign. V'amarta el Aaron, then you should say to Aaron, Kach es matcha, take your staff, v'hashlech lefnei Paroi, and cast it before Paroi. Right, that shorish there, shin lamed chav, means to cast. It's like tashlich, to cast when we cast our right. It's the same shorish. Cast it before Paroi. Yehi lesanin, it will be a serpent. Some say a snake. Some say it was a crocodile. Exactly what a tanin is not clear. Some sort of an amphibious creature. Okay. So we have in this psukim, Hashem tells Moshe, if Paro asked you for a sign, here's what you should do. Now, what was the idea of this sign? It's almost like it's almost like a given that Paro is going to ask for a sign. What is the significance of asking for a sign? Why might Paro ask for a sign? And what did he have in mind when he asked for a sign?
Proof.
Proof, right?
Yes.
Proof, as Rashi says, I want proof that the one who you claim sends you, aka God, right, has ability. Meaning, I want to see what he's made out of, so to speak. It's not right. Let's see what he can do. So in those times, right, it was all about proving through supernatural means.
Okay.
Whether they really were supernatural or not, we'll discuss shortly. What the Mefarshim say about that. But the idea, especially in Mitzrayim was known as a hotbed of magic, right? Magic, black magic, all these lovely things. Mitzrayim was known for that, and therefore the way it was kind of like you come, right? If you come to a business meeting, so you want to show up with a product that will impress that particular, right? If you want to come to the military, you show them, right? You want to present them with some sort of, military technology. You come to them with Swiss cheese, they're not going to think much of it, right? So to come to Mitzrayim, the in thing was magic. So you wanted to show what you were made. You showed some shtick they couldn't pull off. So right, that's what that's the simple idea here of providing a sign.
Yeah.
The Mefarshim say it wasn't just that. There was, in other words, it wasn't just a way of saying I can do cool stuff.
Yeah.
The signs had a message. So, for example, we'll see that after it turns into a serpent, right? They turn back into staffs, and afterwards, Aaron's staff swallowed up the staffs of the Egyptians, of the Egyptian magicians who also did the same thing. And the Ramban and others go so far as saying that was the main point.
Yeah.
That was the main point. In other words, it was the message to Paro to say, if you don't watch out, right, you're going to end up swallowed up just like these staffs. And that was actually, we'll go into that later. But the point was that it wasn't just a way of saying I can do something interesting. There was a significance in whatever it was that Moshe did. It was usually a precursor to later events.
Yeah.
So that was part of it as well. We'll go to the next pasuk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, if I may say, and it's kind of a question. I had always assumed that here, God was showing Moses like a basic trick that, like any third grader back in Pharaoh's times, and any magician of Pharaoh could do, so that Pharaoh would, say, "Ha ha ha," how stupid. And the Pharaoh would bring in others so as to show Moses, what a jerk you are. At which point, then the staff would become a staff again and swallow, which was a piece of magic that the others couldn't do.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, I don't know. We see certainly they were able to duplicate it in some way. Yeah. They were able to duplicate it. That's certainly, whether Hashem specifically gave a second-rate sign, like what you're saying, just so that could be. I don't know. I never studied Egyptian magic, so I don't know what was considered, the rage back then and what was not. But you're saying certainly it's certainly a sensible idea. It seems that Hashem could have given something which they couldn't duplicate, but He gave things they could duplicate. Maybe that was deliberate. It's an interesting point. Why don't you should look into it? It's a good, very good Good observation. So let's look here at Pasuk Yud. Vayavai Moshe v'Aaron al Paroi, Vayasu Chain. Moshe and Aaron came to Paroi, and they did so Ka'asher Tziva Hashem, as Hashem commanded. Vayashlich Aaron es Mateyu, Lefnei Fariv, Lefnei Avoda, Vahi Lasanan. And Aaron cast his staff before Paroi, before his servants, and it was a serpent. Pasuk Yud Aleph. Vayikra gam Paroi lachachamim v'lamachashvim. Paroi called also to the wise men and to the sorcerers. Some may have heard the term kishuf. That's a Hebrew root. It means magic, and it's found here in the pasuk. V'lamachashvim, to those who do magic, right? To the sorcerers. Vayasu gam heim chartumim mitzrayim b'lahateim came, and the chartumim. It's a difficult word to translate. We'll come back to that soon. The chartumim of Egypt did so with their lahatim. That's also a difficult word to translate. They did so with their lahatim as well. A lot of new words here.
There are staffs.
Lahatayim does not mean staffs. We'll see shortly what that means. They use this lahat business to do something to their staffs, but
it says their wonders or their magic or their capabilities. It's what they did. And notice that Moshe Rabbeinu did not use lahat. So lahat could also be their trickery. For example, what's the name of that?
Sleight
David
of hand.
Tucker, I think it was, who made the Statue of Liberty disappear.
was this?
One of his shows,
Okay.
he made the Statue of Liberty
Penn and
disappear.
Teller? I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah. Okay.
These people who were sitting, watching through the window,
I see.
seeing that the Statue of Liberty was out there, and it was a trick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the thing is, nowadays they always show it as illusions.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the titles for a modern day magician is Master of Illusion.
Sure. Right.
So the thing is, they were masters of illusion to do the appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And exactly how or when or what, or even if there was such a thing as magic, we no longer know and we can't do it anymore.
Good. So the basics of what you're saying is that lahat refers to the method they used to do not to the staff. It was the method they used to change the staff. That's correct. Maybe we'll discuss shortly.
Yeah, and it
the
uses
different,
it again different
translations.
in different times when they tried to duplicate the
Right.
the
That's
blood,
right.
when they tried to do whatever they tried to do, but it was always using something called lahat.
Perhaps.
Moshe Rabbeinu did
Well,
not know.
perhaps we'll see that it may not have been consistently the same method. We'll
Right.
discuss that later.
Well, that was another thing, but whatever. In this case,
But more,
it seems
but
lahat is their
more
method.
or less, right? There's something called lahat. We'll discuss what that was shortly. Just a breakdown of some of the terms here. So, and even before we get to that, so what was Paro doing? So, as someone said before, right? He was trying to basically say, Paro was trying to, at least as he thought, right, to undermine Moshe Rabbeinu's authority, and say, you know what? It's nothing to do with God. This is you're just good at your profession. You just practiced a lot, right? You must have a master's in magic or something like that, right? You're a master magician. You're just good at what you do. This has nothing to do with God. Let's not bring God into this. This is about you. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so we'll negotiate things. Let's not bring things into. Let's not go that route. So Paro calls in his men. So can you do this too, right? And they do to some degree. They do. They do. Who did he call in? So there is an interesting breakdown of terms here. It says he called the Chachamim, the wise men, and he called the Machashvim, the sorcerers, but the ones who did it have a different name, right? He called the wise men, he called the sorcerers, and it says the Chartumim are the ones who did it. So the first question is, what are Chartumim? How do they differ from the other ones, and why are they doing it and the other ones are not? First of all, as far as what Chartumim mean, there are several opinions. Some say, most say, it's not a Hebrew word. It's either Egyptian or it's Aramaic. Rashi says it's Aramaic. He says it's an Aramaic compound, meaning it's two words put together. You ready for this?
Okay.
It comes from the word char tume. The words, right? Char means to disturb. To disturb, and tume is an Aramaic word for bones. Because apparently a lot of this kind of magic focused on dealing with bones. People, they did this stuff with bones. Animal bones, one of them, the Chazal had a tradition that one of the popular methods in Canaan at that point of magic was taking a bone of a wild animal, sticking it in your mouth, and then that would somehow conjure up a spirit that would speak through the bone.
Wow.
Creepy stuff.
Yeah.
So, or using the skull of a dead man, all sorts of things that have to do with bones. So the term for a magician was chartum, a chartum, someone who stirred up, who aggravated bones. There was an additional type of the Ramban really talks about this. So there was one type of magic which dealt with like bones and other things. There was another type which they call today black magic, which was had to do with demons and all sorts of other. It's called black magic, and that was another sort of magic out there which they also were proficient in. The Ramban says Chachamim refers to those who were experts who knew how to access these spirits, and Mechashvim, sorcerers, refers to people who knew how to use the bones, and the Chartumim, or knew how to use the other forms of magic that were not black magic. And Chartumim, he says, is a general term which includes everybody. So that what the Ramban comes out with is that both between them, or both groups, were able to perform, to duplicate what Moshe did. That's how the Ramban views it. As far as whether this stuff existed or not, there's no clear answer. The majority of Mefarshim, based on various Gemaras, say that they did exist, because the Torah repeatedly tells us not to engage in such practices, and from the amount of time it spends on them, it seems, and from the various Gemaras, that what the Torah is telling us is, even though these are methods which you can predict the future, or you can access certain spirits, whatever it is, right, you shouldn't do that. But it implies that there is some substance to it. Against all of that, and again, he had his reasons, obviously, was the Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Avodah Zarah, and it's interesting because the Rambam, not going to go through all of it, but he goes through all the details. This sort of magic, that sort of magic. A Jew shouldn't do this, he shouldn't do that. This is what happens if you do this. This is what happens if you do that. I mean, it's very, very detailed. The Rambam certainly knew all of Tanakh, he knew all the Chazals, but nevertheless, at the end, it's in Hilchos, it's in Sefer Hamada, which is the first section of the Yod HaChazaka, the 14 volume encyclopedia that the Rambam made of halacha, and it's in the laws of avodas echavim, the laws of idolatry, Perek Yud Aleph, and at the end, here's what he writes. I'm going to read it word for word, just so you see how forceful the Rambam was about this, and it got him in some trouble. Not everyone, I would say most, including the Vilna Gaon, did not approve of what the Rambam said, but the Rambam did say it, so we're going to quote it. Devarim ha'elu kulan divrei sheker v'chazav. He says, these words, these matters, that is all the magic that he just described, which a Jew's not allowed to do, all of these are words of lies and deceit. Vehem shehitu behen ordei chachamim hakadmonim legoy ha'aratzos kedei sheyenhagu acharehen. And it was with these that the early idolaters tricked and misled the nations of the land, of the earth, in order so that they would follow them. The Rambam is saying that there were some people, very bright people, who con artists, who developed these phony methods to get people to follow them. Right? This is the Rambam talking about all the things that the Torah says not to do. Ve'eim roi liyisrael shehem chachamim, and it's not fitting for the Jews who are very, very wise, lihimashech mahavelam elu, to pursue this nonsense, not even to suppose that there's any purpose in them. The Rambam is not saying that these things are evil and you shouldn't be involved. He's saying these things are nonsense, and the Torah doesn't even want us to deal with them. They're so ridiculous. Shenemar, and he brings a pasuk, Hiloi nachash b'Yakov, for there is no magician among Yaakov, soothsayer, for like Kosem Yisrael, and there is no sorcerer among Israel. V'nemar, and it says in another verse, Ki hagoyim ha'ela asher ato yoresh isam, for these nations which you come to inherit, al ma'oinim v'al kosmim yishma'u, they follow superstitious ones and sorcerers. V'ata loichein, but not so you. Kol ha'mamin v'advarim ha'elu, v'chayotze behen, Rambam concludes, anyone who believes in these things and the like, u'machashe b'libo shem emes udvar chachma, and thinks that these things are truthful and they're wise, avla Torah asrasan, just the Torah told us not to do them. So anyone who thinks that they have substance, but the Torah told us don't do them anyway, einoi elamin hasachalim, he's nothing but a fool, umechasre hadas, and those who are lacking intelligence, ubechlal hanashim v'hakatanim, and they're just with the women and the young children she'ein datan shlema, who don't have their wits about them, who are always nervous about things and scared about superstition. Ouch. Ava balei hachachma utmei hadas, but the masters of wisdom and those that are pure of intellect, yedu, they will know birayos beruras, with clear proof, shekal elu hadavarim she'asra Torah einam divrei chachma, that all these things the Torah forbade, they are not matters of wisdom, ela toyu v'hevel, they are nonsense and vanity, shenimshechu behem chasrei hadas, that stupid people followed, v'natshu kol darchei emes beglalan, and all of the ways of truth were forsaken because of them. And because of all this, Amra Torah, the Torah said, Keshezira al kol elu ha'avalim, when the Torah warned on all these things, said, Tamim tia Hashem lekecha, you should be whole with Hashem your God, and the idea is, and don't follow all this stupidity. So, so according to the Rambam, what magic? What black magic? All nonsense, right? The whole thing was a bunch of baloney. In Egypt too, it was all sleight of hand. And Hashem gave Moshe something that actually was supernatural, even though what they were doing was just duplicating by sleight of hand. So the Rambam says, again, the majority of Mefarshim do not agree, but the Rambam is a pretty big figure, and that's why we're quoting that as well, just to show the different perspectives on the matter.
So what page is that?
What page? It doesn't go by pages; it goes by chapters.
Yeah.
It's Hamada. That's the first volume of the Rambam. It's the laws of avodas echavim, of idolatry. That's in Sefer Hamada, and then it's Parak Yud Aleph, chapter 11, Halacha Tazayin, paragraph 16, the last one in the parak. That's where he has it, and it's interesting. It's not like he goes, like I said, through all the details, all the halach, every kind of magic the Torah describes. But after that he says, and it's all never existed. So it's all nonsense.
Yeah.
Is he including that, the concept of shadim and such? Or?
Not here, but he says that somewhere else.
Somewhere.
Same thing, yeah.
He's
Nothing,
consistent.
yeah. He says a little different. About shadim, he says something that they only exist to the effect that you believe in them. He doesn't quite say it the same way, but it's certainly a much different approach than you find anywhere else. Yeah, it's not quite the same, but it's certainly a lot more, much more sobering approach than you usually hear about these things. Yes.
Yeah. When he mentioned the logicians, it had me wondering if there he's actually referring to the Greeks.
To the whom? The what? Referring to what? No. Who is he referring to?
Logicians?
Logicians?
Yeah.
I don't think I use that term.
Logic. No.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
In other words, he's very rational and Aristotelian.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm wondering if he's rejecting the Aristotelians in the sense of
No. The Aristotelians
One second.
are
Yeah.
rational.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Except for rhetoric, where rhetoric was also included for the Greeks, and rhetoric was kind of like maybe a magical way of persuading people.
Yeah, so I don't know enough about Aristotle to tell you that. The Rambam certainly was familiar with Aristotle, but that's not to say that that was his reason here.
Right.
It could have been a completely different reason.
Right. Yeah.
But yes, it certainly has undertones of something very different than you normally find amongst the Mefarshim. He's not quiet about it either. He really puts it very harsh, and he follows a similar position in the Moreh Nevuchim as well, which is a philosophical sefer the Rambam wrote. He takes pretty much the same hard line against all of this, There are even legends about it. There's a legend about, I forget the exact details, about something happened in the Rambam's own, again, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but it tells you something about the Rambam. The people said this about him, that there was some sort of something happened in the Rambam's own backyard, some supernatural, magical thing, or something with shadim that happened in his backyard, and someone asked the Rambam, well, now what do you say? And he said, it seems that Hashem is testing me to see how strongly I believe in my position.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Good.
so whether that actually happened or not, I don't know. Some say there are legends to the other effect, that later in life the Rambam took it all back. Again, to know what the Rambam did or didn't is very difficult unless he actually wrote it. We don't know. If he took it back, we don't know about it. He never wrote that down anywhere. So it's
Okay.
you know.
Yeah. No tape recorder.
Yeah, there's no way to know. There were other things the Rambam took back, which we know he took back, but that's not one of them. So, anyway, that's a little bit about that issue. It's a very interesting thing. As far as what lahat means, lahat, the Ramban says, comes from the word. Rashi says he doesn't know what the word lahat just means magic. There is no real definition for it. The Ramban says lahat comes from the word which means burning, because it had to do with fiery malachim, fiery angels, and therefore it's called lahat, burning.
Wow.
That's what the Ramban says.
Wow.
There's another word later on, we're not going to get to it today, called lut, which sounds almost the same. The Mefarshim say it's not the same thing. Lut means whispering, it has to do with charming. Charming spirits, charming other things. So you say lahat and lut sound the same, but they're not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So what you take out of this is, again, whether it was true or false, but there were all sorts of varieties in Egypt. They knew their trade. There wasn't just one standard, right? There were different branches,
Mm-hmm.
right, of and different levels of expertise. So,
So is that why Paro called all these different groups?
yeah, because you had them. Why not get the full gamut, right? Use your resources, right? When you have a crisis, you call the secretary, you call the whole cabinet. So you call all the different, the different experts. Why not? Paro didn't dismiss it. He took it seriously. He called them. So, So let's see here, Pasuk Yud Beis. Vayashlichu ish matehu. Each man, we're talking about the Egyptians here. Each man cast down his staff. Vayiyu l'saninim, and they turned to serpents. Vayivla mate Aharon as matoisam, and the staff of Aaron swallowed up their staffs. Vayechzak leiv Paroi, the next pasuk. Then Paro's heart strengthened, it hardened. V'lo shama alayim, he did not listen to them. Kasher dibra Hashem, as Hashem spoke to them. There are a couple of very interesting details in these psukim, which we'll discuss. Number one, it says the staff of Aaron swallowed their staffs.
Right.
Mefarshim say that what happened, it was exactly like that. The serpent didn't swallow the other staffs of the serpent. No. Aaron's staff turned back into a staff, and then as a staff, that's when it swallowed up the other ones, which was more unusual,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Notice that, in other words, they did whatever trickery they did so that their staffs appeared to be servants.
Okay, I have to step in there for a moment. Bear in mind that it's not definite. There are many Mefarshim who say that they really did something. But okay, let's.
But in any case, what it means is that then they turned it into a serpent, and then it turned back into a staff.
That's right.
And then Aaron's staff, as a staff, somehow wiped out their
Moshe's
staff.
staff.
And in other words,
Aaron was carrying it. Aaron was the one who did it.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
yeah,
Look in the psukim.
Right. So they say Aaron took Moshe's staff because Moshe gave him the staff and said, "No, here you do it."
Right.
Or whatever it was, but it was all, the whole thing to show Paro was that the trickery of the snakes, Hashem is saying, that doesn't apply to anything. Look what I'm really doing.
Right, and that's what you were saying earlier. So I think you're both saying more or less the same point. That's right. And the Ramban says that there was a message here too. The message, which was not lost on Paro, he says, was that it's a foreshadowing of basically a threat, saying that I'm showing you what's going to happen to you and your empire if you don't obey. I never noticed this before, but the Ramban says, if you look Paroi is actually, right? He's come a long way since his first encounter with Moshe and Aaron. I never really thought about this. Really never did. Because if you compare the first time they met, okay, in last week's parsha, and we'll look at that shortly. Let's have a look at go back to Parsha Shemos. Let's look at Parsha Shemos, Perek Daled, Pasuk Aleph. We need to recall Pasukim. I think it's worth spending a little bit of time on.
4-1.
Yes, 4-1, 5-1. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I said Daled. I meant Hey. Hey. Yeah. Hey Aleph. That's right.
Good.
It really brings to life the Psukim, what the Ramban says here. I never noticed this before. I'd like to share it. So here, Moshe and Aaron come to Paroi, right? Va'achar ba'u Moshe v'Aaron. Afterwards, Moshe and Aaron came. V'yoimru Paroi. They said to Paroi, Koyamar Hashem Elokei Yisrael. So said Hashem, the God of Israel. Shalach es ami. Send forth my nation v'yachogu li b'midbar, and they will have a festival for me in the desert. Now look at Paro's response. Vayomer Paro. Paro says, Mi Hashem asher eshma b'kolei. Who is Hashem that I should heed His voice? The Shalach as Yisrael, to send out Israel. Lo yadati es Hashem. I don't know Hashem. V'gam es Yisrael lo yashaleach. And I'm not going to. I don't know Hashem, and I'm not sending Israel out either.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And they continue, and they say, the God of the Hebrews has chanced upon us. He's told us that we should go for 3 days in the desert, and we should slaughter animals to Hashem our God. Otherwise, he may harm us with plague or by sword. And Paro says to them, why are you stopping people from doing work? Go back to whatever you're doing, and there are so many people who are working over here. You're disturbing the peace, right? And then he makes he steps up the pressure, tells them that they're going to have to fulfill the old quota of bricks, but they're going to have to get their own straw. And he concludes by saying, let's make the work harder, and let them not turn and be preoccupied with nonsense. That's Paro's long diatribe here, right?
Yes.
How would we describe what emotion would you associate with Paro's response?
In other words, Paro was saying, first of all, they came and they said, our God came to us, so we will be punished. We will be harmed as
Right.
a result. And therefore, since you want us to continue to be slaves to work, you need to listen to this.
Okay.
Because now, Paro is disdain. He's saying, I am the chief of the gods, and therefore your God will not be allowed by my gods to harm me.
Okay,
cause
good.
harm to me.
Okay, good. So you're saying Paro was saying this has nothing to do with anything. I'm the boss.
Right.
Now my question is though. My question is a good point. My question is, which emotion do you feel coming from these psukim? What would you Paro's response? What do you think of? Disdain,
arrogance,
derision, just all those sorts of things, right? And he really lets it. You feel the evil just seeping through the psukim when you read the. I always did, right? You just feel this. You're encountering this just dirty person, right? Okay,
Yeah.
That's his response here, right? And what is his response? Now that's his first encounter. The next direct encounter is the one we're reading, right? Where they basically come and repeat more or less the same thing, and they give him a sign, and what's Paro's reaction? Nothing. Not a word.
Right.
Not a word.
Right.
Not a word. All it says is his heart became hardened, and he didn't listen to them as Hashem said. That's a bit far cry from the last time he met, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, could he have said stuff and the pasuk just didn't tell us? Maybe. But it doesn't sound like it was anywhere near the intensity of the last time. He kept his mouth shut. He might not have listened, but he didn't give his, what they call it, right? They say in, right, He didn't give his deus. He didn't give all of his opinions either on the matter. He kept his mouth shut.
Well, didn't he ask for a mofes? He asked for a sign.
He did, but after they showed it to him,
Then he kept
nothing. He didn't. It doesn't say. He said, "Who's God? See, I told you." He doesn't say that, right? He doesn't say, The Midrashim say that he laughed at them, and he says that, you bring straw to Egypt, right? You bring basically what they have an expression like that in America.
Coals to
Coals.
That's
Newcastle.
it. Coals to Newcastle. I knew it, right? Coals to Newcastle, right? What are you wasting your time? But at least on the surface, he did, and even that's a far cry from all the other. Last time we said, "Who's God that I should listen to?" I'm not interested in this stuff, right? I don't know who this is. You're wasting our time. Go back to your business. None of that. Not a word, right? Passive resistance, nothing. No more active resistance. What happened? So the Ramban says Paro was scared.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to admit it,
Yeah.
but as much as he said, "Oh, I can do it too," and this, that, but between the sign and reading between the lines about the staffs swallowing up his magician's staff, Paro was not as brave as he made out to be. He no longer challenged Hashem directly. He wasn't ready to listen, right? He still was brazen enough to passively resist and not, I need to see more, right? I'm not convinced yet. But he wasn't gonna blaspheme Hashem either. So you see, from
Well, in those days, the whole idea of the superstition is, I see you have something who is now allowed to have power within my territory. Therefore, theoretically, he could be allowed to harm his own worshippers.
right. This is a good observation. What you're saying is he wasn't ready to. He never quite got this power that there's Hashem is above everything else. He sort of was willing to give him equal, make him like an equal or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, so therefore he said, since my gods are allowing your God to show power, even though it's this basic power, then there is that possibility.
Right,
That-
right. So he was a little shaken, but I just never noticed that before. That you have this long speech the first time, pasuk after pasuk of just absolute chutzpah, and here all the pasuk tells us is his heart strengthened and he didn't listen. That implies that he didn't say much else. He was just too shaken to really give a response, and he really never does again. He never ever says anything like that again.
Right.
Never ever. The most he says is at before the 10th Makkah. He tells Moshe and Aaron, if I see you again, then you'll never see me alive or something like that. He gives this sort of it's like death threat to them, but he doesn't direct it at Hashem.
Yeah.
If anything, a couple times he even says very nice things about Hashem. A couple times,
Yeah.
but never anything like that. Again, to a certain extent, Paro is already humbled. He's already not the same person. It's a really a very striking observation, I think.
Thank you.
Okay,
Beautiful.
ready? Pasuk Yudalid.
Yeah.
Vayomer Hashem al Moshe. So Hashem says to Moshe, "Okay, kaved leiv Paro. The heart of Paro is kaved." Interesting word here. Kaved means heavy. It also the same root means honor. That's not a coincidence. It also means a liver.
Liver.
Liver. Yep. But here it means heavy. The heart of Paro is heavy. Me'ain l'shalach ha'am. He has refused to send out the people. In other words, even if he didn't, right? Even if he didn't give his 2 cents, he's still not listening. And that was the deal was he has to listen. So he hasn't listened. Therefore, lech el Paroi. Next pasuk, go to Paroi b'boiker in the morning. Hine yotzei hamayim. Behold, he will be going out to the water. V'nitzavta likrasei al sfas hayar. And you should stand opposite him on the edge of the river, literally the lip of the river. It means the edge. V'hamata asher nepach lenachash tikach biyadecha. And that staff, which was turned into a serpent, into a snake, you should take in your hand. So he's going to go out to Paro. He's going to give him warning, and the show is on, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, Hashem tells him, go out in the morning. He's going to go out to the water.
Yeah.
Now, what's the significance of going out to the water, and why should Moshe specifically make it his business to meet him then? He has no problem going to the palace to get an audience. He's already done that twice.
Right.
So what was this thing about the water?
He was going to relieve him, right? He used to.
Okay, Rashi says that, right? Very good.
And by Moshe being there, it kind of humiliates him a bit, embarrasses him. You know, he wants to keep this secret because he thinks he's something very special, that he doesn't have to do such things
Uh-huh.
like a human. But now, it kind of
It blows his cover.
Yeah, blows his cover, and
Good.
so he's very uncomfortable about it.
Okay, what were you saying?
Exactly.
Yes, so
Well, also, the Nile was their chief representative of the gods.
Oh.
mhm.
It was, so therefore, he was, not only that, so for him in the morning, even if he was, even with this going back to sex stuff,
Wow.
it was his morning services. He was going there to make show himself as being under the gods.
right.
And this was so therefore that was where he was showing his power, the power of the gods over Egypt. And so Moshe Rabbeinu is now coming saying, no, this you're here, I'm saying this right in front of your God, in front of, and showing the powerlessness of this deity.
Right. That's very good. That's right. So we have a couple points here. Number one is the fact that so Rashi brings from the Medrash that I'm not sure if Rashi says it. I don't recall. Maybe Rashi does say it. I know it's a Medrash that Paro had this excuse to keep up this image that he didn't need to go to the bathroom and take care of other physical. He wasn't the only one to try this, by the way. There have been other people throughout history who've tried to maintain such an image. How well that's worked. I once heard I once heard of a story of a student who had a teacher who presented himself this way, would never left the classroom, never had to go to the bathroom. That's just the way, I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, carried himself. And one day the student just approached, it was from school, approached, I have a question for you. Are you Paro or something? Like you never leave the room. So, maybe even down to our times. But Paro put up such an image. He wanted to be seen as the god of Egypt. So, right. So, however their belief system worked. So, and Moshe came to burst that bubble. Incidentally, he was, according to some of Arshim, he was even more successful than we might think. This is a chiddush, but there are some of Arshim who say this. They say they bring it from a Targum Onkelos or Yonas of Menuziel. They have proof that Paro, right, there was like a whole, after the river turned to blood, you kind of had this national crisis develop, and Paro wasn't able to leave on the spot. He wasn't able to leave. He had to deal with the situation, right? He was probably interviewed on national media, right, national television, right? He had to hang out there for a little while. And in the meantime, he never managed to use the bathroom. So he ended up having to go in front of everybody, more or less. That's what some Mepharshim say. So according to that, his cover was really blown. Didn't stop people, though. People still believed in him almost till the end. You can rationalize anything. But, that was one purpose. Others say that, yes, the whole thing was just to shatter the whole symbolism of what the Nile was and all of that. It was just to really shatter the whole thing. The Ramban says also it was a public affair. He says something different than Rashi. He says that no, it wasn't going to the bathroom. Paro used to go out there. It was like a ceremony. He would go out there and parade by the river and ride around, and people would, right? It was like a spectacle. So Hashem wanted Moshe to do it while everyone was there to make it more embarrassing, and also maybe the people, as they later did, would intercede and try and contest Paro and get him to back down. Neither one happened, but that, according to the Rambam, was a reason why it was done at the water. Pasuk Tes Zayin.
And what's the purpose of turning it red? Or blood?
Turning it blood?
Yeah.
Well, the one purpose is it's very simple. As everyone's been saying, that the Nile symbolized to them their it was the main power, right? They thought that that was their source of not just livelihood, life itself, the Nile, and they attributed supernatural powers to it, and by Hashem turning into blood, he basically was showing that their so-called gods were nothing at all. Also, it was just a horrific thing. I mean, especially according to those who hold that that even underground reservoirs turned to blood. There really wasn't anything to do for that week. There really were no simple options as to how to drink, and it was something which was, I mean, absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
Really horrific.
Yeah.
According to some midrashim, they could buy from Jews at an inflated price and get water, or if you dug real deep, you were able to find something. But it was just a disaster. I mean, for that week, it was.
Yeah.
It could have very well killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, when there's all of a sudden no water, and it also caused all the fish to die, which upset the whole ecological system, right? And caused probably mass plague, because when you have a lot of dead things, it brings disease. So, and the pasuk says specifically that all the fish died. So you can imagine just what that would do.
Yeah.
And also it was the Mepharshim say it was a midah keneged midah. It was blow for blow because of what the Jews did, the Egyptians did to the Jews, that they drowned their children in the water. This whole thing happened with the Nile. There are many. So there are many.
Okay.
There are many different. These are just a small number of the ideas, the significance of the river turning to blood. But that's just a little sampling.
Thank you.
We'll just finish these psukim, give a short review, and then we'll stop here. I think we get to Tzfardea today. Tes Zayin. V'amartu el Elisha, say to him, Hashem Elokeinu Ivrim Shalachani Elecha Leimor. Hashem, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to you, saying, Shalach as Ami, send forth my nation. V'avduni b'midbar, they will serve me in the desert. V'ine lo shamata koyin, behold, you have not listened up to this point. Koy Amar Hashem, so said Hashem. V'zois teidaki ane Hashem, with this you will in fact know that I am Hashem. Hinei anochi makeh b'mata asher b'yadi al hamayim asher b'ya'or. Behold, I will be striking with this staff which is in my hand on the water which is in the river, and they will be turned to blood. V'hadaga asher b'ya'or tamus, and the fish that are in the river will die. Uva'ash haya'or, and the river will stink, will rot. V'nilu mitzrayim lishtos mayim haya'or, and the Egypt will be either unable or will wary from their efforts to try and get drink water from the river. Either that it will be impossible, downright impossible, or so difficult that it will just wear them down, which is exactly what happened. So, just to summarize the points, we're not going to get further than this. We spoke about just a general perspective about the Makos, about all the detail in the Makos. Why there's one of the reasons the Makos is why there were so many Makos, so many types of Makos, so that everyone can take something out of it. We spoke about the idea of a sign in those times, what it meant, and what Paro had in mind, what Moshe showed him. Paro duplicating it, was it legitimate, was it not legitimate? The different types of magic that existed back then. The significance in the sign, which scared Paro to the point which the Ramban says that it really shut him down. He was much more meek afterwards. He never was the same person as before. We spoke about that, and also the significance of the water, of Moshe going out to the water, what the symbolism of that, to ridicule Paro and to make more of a spectacle out of it, and also we discussed just now some of the different ideas that we take out of the fact of the first Makkah, the significance, and what kind of message it sent to Mitzrayim. Okay.
Why did it take a year? That was your original
So
point.
one of the reasons was that Hashem deliberately spaced it out over time with all sorts of Makkos and details, so that way people over history could learn from it. Each one could connect to their own way to the Makkos. Everyone has a different point which hits them, and that was one of the reasons that Hashem made in the first place. That's one of the reasons. Okay, thank you for coming. See you back, Parshas B'Shalach, Hashem.
Thank you. Go ahead.